Hi, I want to tell you a story from the book of Alma. First of all, it's going to be long. Secondly, yeah, it's religious. Don't freak out because third, stories from all religious traditions are super useful for us as humans to listen to and think, how are we alike? How are we different? What can we learn? So that's your job. You're going to listen and you think about how are we alike? What can we learn? Okay? So let's get started. This story is about a guy named Amalickiah. All right. Malachi was a big, strong, rich, and powerful man who wanted to be king, which is kind of normal for rich, strong, powerful men want to do. Except he was a Nephite, and he lived in the land of Nephi, and Nephites had no kings. No, they didn't do it because they were like, hey, every time we give one dude unlimited, vast powers over all of us, he makes really bad decisions and we suffer. So let's not do that anymore. So they didn't. They instead had laws that applied to everybody equally. And if they wanted to change the laws, they voted and everybody agreed. And, by the voice of the people, the laws were changed and made better. Okay. And Malachiah, being a rich, strong, powerful man, didn't want to follow the laws, and so he was talking to all his friends and convincing them, like, hey, if you make me king, we can get rid of all this, us following laws business, and, go back to doing whatever we wanted. And they were like, you're sounding really good. And that was great, except for the fact that Captain Moroni here heard about it. Yeah, Captain Moroni, not a fan of this. He was, in fact, angry. Now, you may ask, who's Captain Moroni? Captain Moroni is an exhausted veteran. Yep, he is the captain of the armies of the Nephites, because guess what? They're at war with their neighbors to the north, okay? So much backstory. I'm not going to tell you that part because you're welcome. Basically, Nephites, Ukraine, Lamanites, giant Russia, okay? Exactly the war that's happening. So, captain of the armies, they've been at war for years. He's exhausted. He hears Amalickiah being like, make me king, and he is angry. Now, is it stupid to change governments in the middle of a war? Yes, it is, okay? But that's not why he's angry. To find out why Captain Moroni here is angry, we have to go back 15 years. So, flashback. 15 years earlier, there was this dude, a Nephite, named Amlici. And Amlici wanted to be king. And he was charming and rich, and he went to all his charming rich friends and be like, can you believe who they let vote these days? Ugh, I hate that we have to listen to the people. You know what, make me king, and we can just go back to the way it was. It'll be great. And they were like, it will be great, Amlici. I'm for you. Amlici for king. I'm a king man. Amlici for king. So they started wanting Amlici to be king, and everybody else was like, are you, no, I don't want you to be king. We have laws that are equal to everybody that we help decide. No, I don't want to do this. So the kingmen were for Amlici and the freemen were for not Amlici, okay? Lots of fighting, lots of yelling, lots of contention, but they're Nephites, so they had a vote. And the vote came through, and by the voice of the people, it was determined that no, we don't want Amlici for king. So Amlici, what did he do? Naturally, he refused to accept the vote. He told everybody, leave your wives, leave your families, we're going to form an army, and then we're going to attack our friends and neighbors and beat them and maim them and kill them until they accept me as king. And all of his kingman friends said, okay, that sounds great. And so they did. They made an army. And everybody else said, word, bet. And they made another army to defend their city and their families and friends and neighbors. And then Amlici's army came and tried to take over and conquer so Amlici could be king, and they fought, and the kingman army got beat up, and so they retreated, and the freemen are like, no, you're not coming close to here. So they come back up, but they fight again, and they were losing, so they retreated, and losing and retreated, and losing and retreated. Finally, the kingman army went across the river into Lamanite territory, and the freeman army were like, we're just going to camp here on the border of the river. We're not going to go over into Russia. Like, you okay, cool. A couple days passed, they're like, hey, we haven't heard from them in a minute. Send a scout. Scouts come running back. They're like, y'all, Amlici has betrayed everybody. He's joined up with the Lamanite army, and they have marched around us, and they're attacking city. They're killing civilians. Run! So they run. They just book it to this other city, okay? Now, they're tiny and outnumbered, but they see an enormous army of not just the kingmen and Amlici, but like the neighboring Lamanites, and they're just slaughtering civilians. So this tiny outnumbered Freeman army doesn't balk. No, they run right in there and just start like doing everything they can to defend grandmas and grandpas, mamas and babies, dogs and cats in the city. They're just killing, okay? Terrible fighting, awful fighting, brutal, bloody, horrifying fights, okay? So many of the freemen die. So many Lamanites die. So many civilians die. Okay? Terrible. Almost all of the kingmen die. Like, almost all of them are murdered in this terrible, awful, bloody, horrible battle. Okay? Finally, Alma, because it's the book of Alma, slays Amlici. Leader, the king to be, is dead. Okay? And at that point, the Lamanite generals were like, we're out. We're going to retreat because, it's okay to let Nephites kill Nephites, but we're not going to kill our people, so we got to go, okay? So, the battle was over. But it wasn't really a victory, because whole families were destroyed. Crops were destroyed. Animals were destroyed. Homes, houses. Everybody's hurting. So many people died on both sides, and now they're in these hard, hungry, sad, bad times as they try to rebuild, okay? It was terrible. It was terrible. So, when our exhausted veteran, Captain Moroni, hears that Amalickiah wants to be king again, he's furious because he knows exactly what happens when one selfish dude wants to be king, when one selfish dude refuses to listen to an election, when one selfish dude is willing to hurt and maim and kill in order to force his neighbors, the people around him, to obey him. He knows exactly what happens when one selfish dude is willing to sell out an entire country to an enemy just for a little slice of power, okay? He's mad. Rightly so. So, what does he do? Well, he goes home, and he gets his cloak, and he rips it in half, and he writes, "In memory of our God, our religion and freedom, and our peace, our wives and our children," on this cloak, okay? And then he puts on all his armor, and he ties this cloak with all the words, his manifesto, on a pole, and he goes into town. Okay, well, first he says a little prayer, okay, because it's a religious text, and I like this picture, okay? But then he gets into town, he starts yelling. Okay, he starts yelling. He says, "I have vowed to protect my land, my gods, my freedom, my family, my wife, my peace, my children, and I will do so until I am torn in half like my cloak. What are y'all gonna do? What are you gonna do?" Okay? So, what do you think they did? What would you do if a veteran started yelling at you in the middle of town about kings? What would you do? I mean, depends how you feel about kings and elections and laws, right? Anyway, I'll stop there because this is already too long. Let me know if you want a part two. But the point is any of this familiar? What would you do?